All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Look, if you're an executive trying to navigate a market that's just completely full of disruption right now, the concepts we're breaking down today from Melissa Perri's research are absolutely vital to your company's future. We're going to look at exactly why the traditional feature factory approach is a massive threat to your business survival, and, more importantly, how you can restructure your entire organization to become completely product-led.
So let's start by holding up a mirror. Honestly, what was the absolute last product your company decided to kill? Seriously, think about it for a second. If you cannot easily answer that question, your organization is likely suffocating in what Melissa Perri calls the build trap. You know, this usually happens when organizations hesitate to kill underperforming products because of sunk costs, or maybe rigid annual budgeting, or just a lack of empowerment to push back against initial management directives. If everything you start just keeps getting built, regardless of what the data actually says, yeah, you've got a massive systemic issue on your hands.
But don't worry. To cross that gap from a stagnant feature factory to a real innovative powerhouse, here's our playbook. We'll diagnose the trap, explore the value exchange, move from projects to products, align your strategic framework, and finally, rewire your culture.
Okay, Section 1, Diagnosing the Build Trap. Let's take a look at the actual symptoms of failure. This right here gets to the absolute core of the problem. Companies get stuck in the build trap because they mistakenly celebrate outputs instead of measuring true, valuable outcomes. I mean, think about a time when your team cheered because a massive update finally shipped on a Friday, right? But then, weeks later, you check the metrics and user engagement hasn't moved an inch. That right there, that is the build trap. You're measuring success by the sheer volume of code written and deadlines met, rather than actual customer retention or revenue growth. History is literally full of warnings here. Look at Kodak. They had user research predicting the integration of cameras and phones, but they completely ignored it. They stuck to their traditional outputs instead of adapting to market outcomes. And consider the sheer financial waste that comes from focusing just on outputs. In one real-world example detailed in the research, this involved an enterprise data platform. Out of 30 actively built and maintained features, guess how many were actually utilized by clients? 2%. Just 2%. I want you to imagine the thousands of engineering hours and millions of dollars just poured down the drain on the other 98%. And all because the company was stuck in this reactive mode, chasing competitive parity and fulfilling misguided sales promises instead of delivering real strategic value.
Which brings us to Section 2, the value exchange system. We are fundamentally shifting our paradigm here from measuring volume to measuring real value.
As an executive, you must deeply understand this. Products are not inherently valuable. 10 shiny new features on a dashboard mean absolutely nothing in isolation. A product's true worth lies entirely in its ability to solve real problems and fulfill customer desires. When, and honestly, only when, a customer's need is met, do they reciprocate by providing value back to your business. That could be in the form of money, data, or knowledge. If you aren't actually solving their problem, that entire exchange breaks down no matter how hard your developers are working in the background.
So how do we fix this? Section 3, From Projects to Products. It's time to literally rewire the engine of your company. Take a really hard look at this breakdown. Ask yourself, which dysfunctional model might your company currently be operating under? Are you sales-led, where the loudest customer contract completely dictates the roadmap, forcing your whole team into this reactive frenzy? Or maybe you're visionary-led, completely dependent on a single leader's ideas, which, let's face it, risks total instability if they ever leave. Or are you technology-led, building incredibly cool, cutting-edge things that absolutely no one actually wants to buy? As an executive, your ultimate goal was to transition your organization into the product-led model. That's where the overarching strategy is explicitly aligned with solving customer problems to drive your business success. To make that happen, you have to fundamentally shift your talent from a project mindset to a product mindset. Look, project management is essential, for sure, but it's focused on timelines, scopes, and constantly asking, when will this be done? Products, on the other hand, are living things. They require continuous care and iteration. And this is exactly why you must bring in true product management. Product managers ask, why are we building this? They synthesize the data, the market research, and user feedback to ensure the team is solving the right problem, not just hitting some arbitrary deadline. Moving right along, Section 4, Aligning your strategic framework. Once you've got that right product management mindset in place, you need a crystal clear framework, and it has to cascade seamlessly from the C-suite right down to the daily engineering stand-ups. A strategy isn't a detailed 100-page plan or some massive, rigid list of features.
It's a deployable decision-making framework. It starts at the top with a clear company vision. Then you establish a few strategic intents. These are your high-level business goals, like, say, entering a new market. From there, your teams define product initiatives, which identify the specific user problems that actually need solving to hit those business goals. And finally, teams explore options, which are the experiments and potential solutions. This whole setup ensures that a developer's daily code is directly serving the overarching company vision.
A perfect example of this kind of strategic alignment is Netflix. They knew their vision was to provide convenient access to entertainment, so when they saw streaming on the horizon, they pivoted hard. They even initiated Project Griffin to build their own hardware streaming device. But right before launch, CEO Reed Hastings decisively killed the project. Why? Because it directly conflicted with their strategic vision of being a software-centric company. So they spun it off into Roku instead. That right there is the power of a strategic framework. It gives you the absolute clarity to kill a bad idea before it derails your entire company.
And using data to drive these strategic options is absolutely critical. Consider the case study of an education company called Marquetly. They realized their user retention rate was sitting at a really dismal 40%. Now, instead of just blindly adding random features hoping something would stick, their product team analyzed the data. They realized users were actually leaving because there simply wasn't enough course variety. They calculated that if they could raise retention to 70% by helping teachers publish more courses, they'd gain an additional $90,000 monthly. So they targeted the root problem, experimented with targeted solutions like providing video editing tools to teachers, and fundamentally transformed their metrics.
Finally, we reach Section 5, cultivating a product-led culture. Because honestly, all these frameworks will fail if your culture punishes the right behaviors.
This quote from Melissa Perri should be a massive wake-up call for most executives. Think about your corporate scorecard for a second. Are you paying out bonuses simply because a team shipped a feature on time? If your bonuses are tied to shipping, I guarantee you, your employees will ship garbage just to get paid, regardless of whether it actually solves a customer problem. You have to reward outcomes, not outputs.
To cultivate a true product-led organization, you've got to adopt these 4 actionable pillars. First, ditch that rigid annual budgeting cycle. Treat internal budgeting more like a venture capital firm. Teams pitch for seed funding to run small experiments. If the data proves the concept works, then they unlock more funding to scale it. Second, implement outcome-based rewards, exactly like we just discussed. Third, create psychological safety. You have to allow your teams to fail in small, fast, cheap ways so they can actually learn. And finally, ensure customer proximity. Your engineers and product managers must have direct, unfiltered access to observe and talk to real users.
As Jeff Bezos famously stated, the ultimate goal of escaping the build trap is creating a culture of obsessive customer focus. It's really not about writing the most elegant code in a vacuum. It's about immersing yourself in the user's environment. When you look at companies like Amazon or even John Deere, where their engineers literally go out and observe farmers in the field, you see that deep empathy is what actually drives billion-dollar growth.
So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a step back and look at your organization today. Who actually originated your last product idea? If your product managers don't know, or if the idea simply came from the loudest executive in the room without any grounding in user research or strategic intent, you are in the build trap. It is time to step up, change the way you measure success, and fundamentally transform your company into a product-led powerhouse.